Hello guys, welcome to my channel and we will be talking about an action sci-fi movie called Seven Omarivu. 1,600 years ago, Bodhidharma, the founder of Kung Fu, was one of the best martial artists and he makes medicine that cures deadly disease, but he was sent to China by his teacher. He bids his wife and parents bye and thanks them for allowing him to go to China. However, he gives them a book before he leaves and states that they will understand the book later. While he travels to China, he practices Kung Fu, and he arrives at Nanyang in China after riding for days. Meanwhile, the locals have predicted that danger awaits them and assume Bodhidharma to be the evil force. They reject him and drive him away, thinking the danger has been prevented, but they do not realize that the real danger is a deadly disease. The disease wipes out millions of people and Bodhidharma cures a child, who was isolated from the village because he was infected. After witnessing a miracle, the villagers accept and worship him. He teaches them and physicians from other villages how to prepare the medicine. However, the village is attacked by foreigners. They hang the village leaders, but Bodhidharma arrives just in time and saves them. He defeats the foreigners single-handedly and uses his power of hypnosis to chase them away. The Chinese are amazed at his skill and decide to learn his art in order to defend themselves. He starts to train them and stays in their country for years. Years later, Bodhidharma announces his intentions to return to India, but they poison his food as they believe that their land will be free of future diseases if his body is buried here, and Bodhidharma accepts their plea. The villagers bury him, and continue the art. They train the younger generation even till the present day, and Bodhidharma is worshipped in every temple built in India. In modern-day China, Dong Li is given a task by the government and military to start a war in India, and he is briefed about a lady studying genetic engineering in India. Elsewhere, Arvind, a descendant of Bodhidharma, works at the circus. One day, he spots a group of genetic engineering students and sees a lady, Suba, that intrigues him. He stops to know what the students need, and he is told that they need a monkey for practical purposes. However, he doesn't get the chance to talk to her as his boss refuses to give them the monkey. Lee arrives in India and tests the newly created disease on a dog. However, he is interrupted by the police and he defeats them with ease. More backup arrives and Lee hypnotizes one of the officers, just like Bodhidharma did in the past. The officer proceeds to kill his colleague and then kills himself. Later on, Arvind spots Suba at a recreational center and tries to get her attention. She finally notices him as he appears in all her pictures and says hi to her. Meanwhile, Arvind takes her phone from her bag as an excuse to talk to her when he returns it. He plans to return it after 2 days, despite the phone receiving calls frequently. He finally picks up the call. He informs her that he found it and Suba thanks him. She reveals that a guy from the circus was following her and she lost the phone out of confusion, not realizing that she was speaking with him. She gives him a time and location, but Arvind accidentally breaks the phone out of excitement. The next day, Arvind messes with Suba as he tells her to meet different people to collect a part of the phone and chocolate with a rose, before finally giving her the last piece. She thanks him and tells him her name, but she receives a call and leaves, dropping the flower and rose on the table. Later on, Suba sees Arvind riding an elephant and calls him. He offers to drop her at her friend's house and the two ride on the elephant, even though Suba was reluctant at first as she is scared to ride on it. It turns out that Suba is researching Bodhidharma and his lineage and she carries out some tests on Arvind. Soon after, Arvind's relatives visit him to watch the circus and he leaves to meet them. Meanwhile, Suba sees his family members and tries to hide from them, but his aunt recognizes her and calls her. Suba denies knowing Arvind, but she goes to their hometown to inquire about Bodhidharma and his lineage. Days later, Arvind makes a doll for Suba to tell her that he loves her, but Suba isn't interested and tells him to make one for her friend next time. Not long after, they head out, but Suba stops at a bank to call her friend and tells her about what Arvind did. She tells Suba not to hurt him as they need him, while Arvind also tells his friend that Suba isn't interested in his love. Later on, Suba stops at a museum. She meets a man, who she tells that she completed her research 6 months ago and has sent her thesis to China and US. She later gives him the historical book Bodhidharma gave his parents a long time ago, and the man asks if she has told Arvind. After her meeting, Suba takes Arvind back to the circus and reveals that she has something to tell him. Arvind interrupts her and says that he also has something to tell her. He further states that he's certain that they have the same thing to say, as he believes she is about to profess her love for him. While she leaves, his uncle sees them and asks if he knows that Suba has been searching for him for over a year. His uncle explains to him that Suba wasn't there to look for a monkey but rather she was looking for him as she has been inquiring about the lineage of Bodhidharma and taking his relatives' blood for tests. Feeling betrayed, Arvind drives to her house to confront her and he also finds all her experiment equipment. He deduces immediately that she has been tricking him. She tells him he is the one that mistook her smile and closeness for love and asks him to throw his love away, causing Arvind to leave angrily. The next day, Suba visits him and asks him to come with her. He feels reluctant at first but eventually follows her to the museum. She tells him about the history of Bodhidharma and the book he wrote. She also takes him to the disordered children's care home. She explains that they are infected by genetic diseases and adds that they can bring back a hereditary talent through DNA research. It turns out that the book written by Bodhidharma is about DNA research and she confesses that she started her research to find the DNA that will match Bodhidharma's. However, when she found a picture of him and saw the resemblance, she starts her research on him. She tells that his DNA and Bodhidharma are 83% alike and they can bring back Bodhidharma's skills if his genetic memory is activated. Arvind asks how the talents will be useful now and she says that Bodhidharma can use his medical talent to cure disease and sickness. Suba delivers a speech on her search to some groups at her school but they do not believe her as they are Indian. While she leaves angrily with Arvind, she receives a call from the police station. Her neighbor has been arrested for the death of his father but the boy insists that a Chinese killed him as he was looking for Arvind. During the interrogation, Lee enters the police station and hypnotizes the officers, making them kill each other, but Arvind manages to escape with the boy and Suba. Arvind suggests that they go back to confront him and asks the driver to follow him. They discover that Lee is working with Suba's professor, which surprises them. They sneak into the house and she gets an idea from Arvind as he says that they can get important things from the trash. She checks the trash on his mail and finds out about the operation and the amount of money he received. She calls to the professor and requests a meeting to discuss the research to which he agrees. On their way home, they stop to get some rest and Arvind finds out that Suba likes him. He shouts in joy but wakes Suba in the process. Arvind is late for the meeting with the professor and he asks Suba to send him his number. He calls the professor and tells him that he knows about the operation. He asks why Lee wants to kill Suba and the meaning of Operation Red. Before ending the call, he gives the professor some instructions to follow and they meet on the bus. He takes him to Suba and the three of them drive to an apartment. She calls other students and the professor explains that the war is utilizing biological weapons such as viruses. He adds Lee has infected a dog with the virus and it will soon spread to humans. This will force the Indians to turn to the Chinese for the cure and accept any policy posed by the Chinese. He tells them that if Suba activates Bodhidharma's genetic memory in Arvind, he will be able to produce the cure and Lee wants to kill them in order to prevent that. Ashwin, one of the students, calls his uncle and he confirms that the disease is spreading as a lot of people and dogs have been affected. Elsewhere, Lee inquires from the rickshaw driver where he dropped Suba and he leaves for the apartment. While the students leave through the stairs, Lee enters using the lift and they manage to escape. At the hospital, they find out that the disease is the same strain of virus Bodhidharma cured in China. Suba orders the students to report the situation to the Ministry of Health while she tries to convince the doctor who believes that the disease is chicken pox. She soon spots Lee arriving at the hospital with the professor. She manages to hide from him and calls Arvind to leave the hospital, even though he wants to confront Lee. Lee spots him and tries to hypnotize him but his power does not work on Arvind. Arvind decides to fight him, but he is of no match for Lee, and he is forced to retreat. Lee calls his master to ask why he couldn't control Arvind's mind and discovers that Arvind is a Dhammo, Bodhidharma's bloodline. However, Lee believes that he can kill him since they killed Dhammo. He gives chase and finds them in no time. He then controls the mind of their driver and other road users, thereby causing an accident but Arvind manages to dodge the attacks. The drivers soon start fighting with him, but Arvind fights back and escapes with Suba. Arvind is sad as all they do is run away from war and thinks that they need to fight back. But Suba insists that curing the disease is more important. Malati thinks that they should continue the DNA research in order to bring back Bodhidharma's talent and Suba agrees. The group drives to a lab research center while Lee continues to look for them. They start the test and transfer Bodhidharma's talent into Arvind. Lee keeps searching for them and finds Malati after discovering the store she usually purchased products. He gets the information he needs from her phone and leaves for the location. Lee controls Imran's mind to give him the address to the lab and he calls Suba. She deduces what happened and Lee makes Imran have an accident. They figure out that Lee is on his way to the lab and they decide to stop the transfer in order to protect Arvind's life. Moments later, Lee gets to the lab and finds out that they are gone. He manages to find them and attacks Arvind. Lee beats Arvind mercilessly while Subha watches in horror. After beating him to a pulp, Arvind regains consciousness and possesses the skill of Bodhidharma. Arvind decides to fight Lee head-on and he gains the ability to control nature, which surprises Subha. He beats Lee and finally kills him, putting an end to it all. Afterward, he prepares the medicine and cures the citizens. The movie ends with Arvind alongside Subha telling the people the importance of their history in a TV interview. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. I will see you next time with another chilling story.